All right. Hello, everyone. We'd like to thank you for joining us for our Young Women in Business panel brought to you by the Frank G. Zarup School of Business and hosted by my graduate organization, Zarup Women in Business, and the undergraduate organization, SheEOs. Today, we have a great group of panelists and Zarup alumni, Colleen, Allison, and Nicole. I'd like to turn it over to Maya for our question portion of this event.
Thanks, Janie, and thanks so much for all the panelists being here. We're really excited and we're really grateful that you guys took the time to do this. So we're going to start off, since you guys are all Hofstra alumni, if you guys could answer, how has your connection to Hofstra influenced your careers?
So I can go first. My name's Allison Roye. I work at the JP Morgan Private Bank in the Wealth Management Group. I'm a private bank analyst, and I graduated from Hofstra in 2015. So it's been 5 years since, which is crazy. Hofstra has been a big influence in my career. I actually got all my internships through my connections through Hofstra, which led me to the career that I have now. I use what I think is called Handshake now to get my first internship my sophomore year at UBS in Melville. And that led to another internship, which led to a JP Morgan internship, which led to my career at JP Morgan, which is pretty exciting. So Hofstra's been super impactful from that way for my life. But yeah, that's just a small tidbit of the takeaways I've taken away from going to Hofstra.
Hey everyone, I'm Nicole. I graduated Hofstra undergrad in 2016 and with my MBA in 2017. Hofstra was a huge part of my roots and my foundation to my career. You know, the way that I was able to get to Madison Square Garden is my best friend from Hofstra that was also a business major, actually shared my resume with someone at Madison Square Garden. So my roots of how I got into my job and career now all started with a friend and a connection that I made at Hofstra as well. And then a lot of my internships, as Allison mentioned, I got on Handshake, and we're just surrounded by the Hofstra community. And then finally, my background is representative of my time with the basketball team while I was at Hofstra, which gave me a great background in the sports industry, specifically college sports and things like that. So very thankful and proud to be an alumni.
So my name is Colleen Beirne. I work for the MPD group, and I graduated from Hofstra with my BBA in marketing in 2017, and I'll be graduating with my master's in business analytics at the end of this semester. So I guess that's August now. I think Hofstra's had a huge impact on my career. I was a commuter, so the career center events were very huge for me, and also club events as well. So when I was a sophomore, I started going to resume critique nights, and I went to practice interview nights, and those really helped me fine tune the skills that I needed for networking and kept me interview ready. And then when I was a junior, I went to a Hofstra American Marketing Association meeting, or HAMA, and there was a market research event night, and a woman from NPD came to that event and spoke to us about the industry. And after that meeting, I uncharacteristically decided to go up to her, introduce myself, and essentially asked her how she got to where she was. And she took me under her wing and was able to pass on my resume to the company, and that helped me get my internship, which then helped me get my full-time position the following year. So really those alumni events, if you have the courage to ask for help, we're all doing this because we want to help you, but unless you have the courage to ask for it, we're not able to. So I think using those events from Hofstra are very significant in helping you grow as you begin your career.
Great, thank you. Now, building off of that Hofstra background that you guys have, I'm sure a lot of people want to know if you guys could speak about how your transition from college to your career went, and how did you leverage your experience gained at Hofstra during the transition?
I could start off. I think the transition was interesting because when you're in college and even high school, you hear a lot of myths about what the working world is like your work-life balance is going to be off, or your boss may yell at you, or if you come in at 9:01, something's going to go wrong and things like that. And you're very nervous and you're very apprehensive at first. And, it seems like the three of us have found great places, to work, and we really enjoy our job and things like that. And all of those worries and those anxieties kind of go away and you really find your calling. And I think Hofstra really prepared us well to succeed in the environments that we're in right now. So, we had professors who had professional and work experience that could kind of debunk some of those myths that we thought about. And we were able to study real-time cases that happen in the business world. It wasn't just all out of a textbook. So I think the combination of, the courses we took at Hofstra, the professors that we got to interact with, and also just our overall background and foundation of education prepared us to succeed in the working world. And obviously, it's an adjustment to go from student to a working professional. But I think we all go in with a really strong foundation, as I mentioned, to succeed.
Definitely. And just piggybacking off of that, I think in addition to the academic foundation, which I also found to be very strong, I think the skills that you learn just being a student and learning how to multitask and learning how to balance having multiple projects, I think that definitely helped me as I began my career because, your company is going to teach you what you need to know, but having the organization skills that is imperative to being able to take on new things and not being held up by something small like too many projects.
And I'll actually add to that point of organization. I think that just to drive that point home, when you're working on your workload of 5 or 6 different classes at a time, you're managing that from all different directions, all different professors. And that really sets you up for success when you have maybe multiple clients or multiple different deadlines that you need to meet. So just focusing on honing those skills while you do have some time left, or maybe a couple of years in your Hofstra career, to learn how to organize yourself, because that will just really set you up for a much easier transition into your work-life balance. And I'll add one more thing. One thing that I actually took for granted was a lot of the resources Hofstra provides you in creating a routine, like the fitness center or the newspaper in Zarb. Those are things that kind of set you up to be a really strong business and professional end person. So just starting off and thinking about like taking care of yourself and learning every day will really help you as you progress in your career.
Okay, thank you. Now, being that this is a women's panel, I think we want to know a little bit about your experiences as a female in the workplace. So if you guys could just start talking about how you feel that being a woman in your specific role in your specific company has maybe impacted you, or if you had any pertinent experiences, that would be great. Whichever of you guys want to start.
Sure. So I can start with that. I'm very fortunate that our CEO is actually a woman. Her name is Karen Schoenbart. And I think having a female leader so high up in the company has been incredible for our corporate culture. And being that I'm a young female in the workplace where I'm sure a lot of people have struggles with that, I've never had to deal with that being an issue. I think that our culture is so positive because of that, and all of the bosses that I've had so far have been women, and I've been fortunate enough that they're empowering and that they're motivating, and that is just helping me to want to be that same type of leader as I continue on through my career. So definitely not underestimating the power of having a woman CEO, for sure.
So I'll jump in. So being in wealth management, it's right now predominantly, I think, a male field, but I've been lucky to have both women and male bosses in the 4 titles that I've held over the last 5 years. So lots of experience working with lots of different people. And one thing that I found is being true to yourself. So, being in a situation with a predominantly male team, I always made sure that I stuck true to who I was and let my personality and shine through and connect with those individuals on a personal level. And it kind of transcends the gender situation where you're just people. And I think seeing outside of that is really helpful, you may encounter uncomfortable situations, but always make sure you're being true to yourself, being honest, being transparent, and over communicative with your partners. And I think it'll create stronger bonds, male, female, etc. And that's really what's helped me in the last couple of years.
Yeah, just following up on what Colleen and Allison said, you know, on the point of being true to yourself, I think it's really important to speak up. Because there's going to be times when you're in a room with all men, and you know, you'll feel outnumbered and stuff like that, but never feel like I shouldn't speak up because I'm the only woman in the room. If anything, like, have a voice and be loud and things like that. I mean, personally, you know, in the sports and entertainment industry, which is definitely a more male driven industry, but you know, we've made a lot of progress, not just at Madison Square Garden, but across the industry. But I do want to get to a point where, like, maybe this isn't even a question we have to ask because we've made such progress. But for as much progress as we've made, there's still examples, you know, where it's still a conversation, and people are subjected to certain actions and conversations that I wish they weren't. So there's, you know, personally, I've never been affected, but I think, you know, what's important is that I've always tried to speak up and have a confident, loud voice. And I know that's very difficult for some people, but I do think it helps to be like, hey, I'm in the room and I have a valued opinion and things like that. So, like, listen up in a way. And, you know, to Colleen and Allison's point, I've been fortunate enough to have a really strong female manager in my time at MSG, and to kind of watch her and how she goes about decision making and how she, you know, goes about communicating in meetings. I've, you know, kind of taken that and run with it and used it for myself in different meetings and things like that. So, you know, it's definitely different, but I think as time goes on, it's a big focus in all of our industries, and hopefully, you know, 5-10 years down the line, it's the roles reversed maybe.
Okay.
And just before we go to the next question, a really great book just on all of this was Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, which I think touches upon you know, raising your voice, not being intimidated by being maybe the only female in the room. And I think that was one of the most impactful books I read right when I graduated. So I highly recommend that on that point.
Agreed.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Now just transitioning, I know you guys have all pretty much recently graduated in the last couple of years, and you guys are all young and have, you know, great careers and you're busy. So how do you achieve your professional goals while still maintaining a work-life balance?
So I can start with that one. I would say, and I think I already beat this point, and is routine is so important. Making time for yourself, no matter how busy you are. And I'll be honest, when I graduated, I was not good at that. I graduated and I was like, I need to focus on work. That's 100% my life now. And what you realize is you actually perform better when you take care of yourself. You know, making time for the gym in the morning, making time to be with your friends and your family. It's super, super important. So I think that's my biggest takeaway on things that I use to create the work-life balance, is that self-discipline, to that I matter, my family matters, my health matters, and work also matters. And then it all kind of creates this wonderful circle where everything's kind of going well at some point in your life. So I highly recommend setting up a routine as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point, like, it's easy to start actually with your classes and things in college, right? Like, we all get to that point where maybe we cram when we're studying for finals, or we, you know, do a semester long project the night before and things like that. And doing those things in advance and learning that routine and learning that structure actually benefits you so much when you get to the working world, because then you know, like, okay, this is the structure that works for me. You don't kind of have to figure it out on the fly. And also, like, the cramming, unfortunately, because I did it myself, doesn't work in the real world. You actually have to, you know, put in work for long-term projects and things like that. But yeah, I mean, to Allison's point, you know, when you're new, you're like, okay, I need to be at this job for 16 hours a day, and I need to pound the pavement. And oh my God, if I'm not there the whole night, like, they're gonna think I'm not doing my work, blah, blah, blah. But like, as Allison said, like you do better work when you take care of yourself. And that shows, right? So the people that burn out easily and the people that are overwhelmed and don't take care of their physical health and their mental health, it shows they're not as productive and they're not as effective and they don't do their work as efficiently. So there is a balance that you'll find. And, you know, there are some creatures of habit that like to be in the office longer hours. And then there are others, you know, that are more 9 to 5, and you'll find your balance. But it is extremely important, and make sure you have hobbies and make sure you disconnect, because, you know, you don't want to burn out, because it's hard to come back from a burnout.
And to both of those points, I would even go as far as to say, as important as it is to have professional goals, it's important to make work-life balance a goal also. So something that I found success with is, setting attainable professional goals so that you can keep getting those little wins, and then also setting reach goals so that way you're staying motivated and looking for the future, and then also setting silly goals. So whether that's taking a nap or hanging out with friends or going to the gym, that way you can get those wins and stay motivated, but you're also making sure that you're taking care of yourself, because as both Allison and Nicole said, that's the most important part, because if you don't take care of yourself, there's no way that you're going to be able to achieve your professional goals if you're burned out.
Now, you guys are all obviously working from home due to the coronavirus pandemic. And, obviously this panel was supposed to be in person on campus at Hofstra. However, due to the circumstances, we have to do it through Zoom. So going off of that point, would you guys be able to talk a little bit about maybe working from home, and also how you see the current job market impacted by the pandemic for those who are just coming into the job market, those who are graduating? And yeah, just if you guys could please talk about how you guys are personally navigating the current situation at work, that would be great.
Sure. So I can start with this. So right now, my entire company is working from home around the world, and we do have a hiring freeze in place at the moment. But I did want to mention that because we're a Long Island based company, Long Island schools are critical to our recruiting, especially Hofstra. I remember when I had my interview, they specifically told me, oh, we love Hofstra students. We've had so much luck with them. So if market research is something that you're interested in, Hofstra is a great reputation, and especially with NPD, and they are so welcoming to young adults and willing to take that risk on students that are just graduating with internships or entry level positions or temp positions. And they even have a year-long training program called the Charter Program, which is set to help students that have recently graduated kind of get accustomed to how NPD is. So right now we have a hiring freeze, and things are a little sticky, but that doesn't mean that once things bounce back, there are going to be a lot of companies, including NPD, that are just as excited to hire you as they would have been before all of this.
I think we're all in a very similar position right now, working from home, whether you're a student or you're, a working professional. I'm fortunate that my team is able to assemble quickly. We're not a typical work from home company. We have events every night of the year and things like that. We're based on live experience, but we were able to form quickly and set goals for each other. And a lot of it is personal development as well, since the sales angle that I'm in is not extremely active right now, because there's some companies that are just trying to weather the storm and things like that. So we were able to navigate quickly, which is great and gives you confidence, and holds you accountable for your work each week, which is awesome. But what I will say for the job market right now that I think is really really helpful, I mean, a lot of companies have a hiring freeze. MSG does as well. Most companies are not going to be proactive in hiring right now unless their business is shockingly thriving from the coronavirus, like a grocery store or something like that. But I think it's really important to stay up on news and read right now, because a competitive advantage you have is maybe seeing an article about a company that, is hiring within the first few hours that the article came out, and then going to apply for a job there or going to reach out to someone and things like that. So staying on top of the news and staying on top of the industry that you're looking to go into is very important, just to get a feel and a sense for, hey, is it going to come back in a month? Is it going to take a year for it to come back, and things like that. So I would say for anyone looking for jobs right now, or even, if you're a sophomore or a junior, but the industry you want to go into, just read up, take 20, 30 minutes out of your morning or your night, and just get a little feeling for, kind of what's going on in the pulse of the industry.
So all of those are really wonderful points, and I'm just going to add a little bit. So just on a side note, like working from home has been really wonderful for me. Personally, I love to cook, so I've been able to cook every meal, which has been great. And then sitting down with family every night for dinner, and maybe turning on another hour to do some more work. I feel like I've actually been more productive being home, just having family around me all the time. And then from the perspective of looking for a job right now, I definitely think that there are it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle, but I mean, applying for jobs is already difficult to start with. I think it's just going to test you a little bit. Just continue to push and never really give up. This is a situation where there are jobs out there. There are companies still very busy. I am working just at the full speed that I am other times, but then other industries are seriously affected by what's going on. I mean, we're not going to sporting events. Nobody's traveling. Airplanes aren't taking off at the level that they were. People aren't in their cars. So there are real factors adding to the fact that there's no supply and demand for certain industries, but that's going to change immediately when the doors open. So you have to remember that just to hold on, and maybe right now it's a little bit weird, but in a couple months when the world kind of resets, there are companies that are going to be looking for people to hire, and they're going to be looking for lots of people. So you have to be ready and tactical, have your resume already always updated, continue to contact your network, let them know that you're still looking, post on LinkedIn, make people know you're there. And then when the opportunity comes, when that may be, maybe it's now, maybe it's like 2 or 3 weeks from now, they'll remember you. So I just think don't give up is the phrase when you're in this kind of job market, because it's never been seen before. And I think it's going to get better very quickly. So I would just keep that in mind.
Now, obviously, all of you guys are able to work from home currently due to having, laptops and other forms of internet communication, which is great. Just going off of that, we're living in a really big technological age where this is actually possible. And despite the fact that we are in a pandemic, you guys can still carry out your job functions while being at home. So going off of that, could you guys speak about your individual roles and how technology has really affected your specific role and how you may see it affecting you guys moving forward?
I don't know. I could take that one. Specifically, I work with clients every day, a myriad of clients. We help them with their personal balance sheets, anything from a mortgage to their investment assets. So if you think of that, it's a personal relationship, and not being able to be in the same room as somebody is not as impactful during a conversation. But what I find is now that we have access to things like Zoom, and I'm in a banking industry, so the regulatory industries are starting to come up with that change, and we can be in the room with our client, see face to face, see the mannerisms, and I think that's really, we never would have done that before this. So that's opened up a whole other window of accessing people. There could be individuals who can't leave they're elderly, they may not be able to leave their house, and we can be face to face with them now through Zoom. And I think it just shows the breadth of our ability to be there for our clients in pandemics, when that's actually the most important time, and us leveraging technology to kind of get in front of those clients and say, hey, we're here for you. So that's been really helpful in maintaining the relationships during this time, I think. But I'm sure you guys have similar situations like that.
So with my company, technology is critically important. Being a market research company, everything that we do is online. So really using technology, we have to take real-time retail data from over 20 industries around the world, and we aggregate it into a massive database. And that's what we eventually will analyze, and then we'll sell to our clients so that they can make better informed business decisions. So a big change that we've had is not, like Allison said, being able to go and be with the clients in real life. But everything is online for us. So something that I found to be pretty interesting is after the beginning of this pandemic, 100% of my company is now working from home around the world. And we did that overnight. And I think that's just a testament to how forward thinking my company is, how agile we are. And I think for companies to be able to take that risk and say, you know what, it's not going to be business as usual, but let's try it. Let's work from home and let's see what we can do. I think that's very progressive. It's very important moving forward. And I think it's going to change a lot of the way that companies work. And when things clear up, who knows how many people will have to keep going back to the office every day. And we'll see how the industries change.
Yeah, definitely similar points to Colleen and Allison. I mean, you know, we're able to adjust, right? We're able to get our business, keep our business going and things like that, but there is no substitute for the personal connection and the personal interaction and things like that. And I think we all know it just from a personal level, right? Like you could FaceTime and video chat with your friends, but being with them is just a different feeling. So, you know, for us, we're so heavily based in live events, and that's what our clients pay for, right? Is the exposure and the connection with people at live events, whether it's a concert or a sporting event or things like that. But, you know, MSG is fortunate in that we have a strong digital following for a lot of our teams, like the New York Knicks, the New York Rangers, the Rockettes, etc. So and we also own MSG Networks, which is a regional sports network. That plays the Knicks, the Rangers, the Islanders, the Devils on it, and things like that. So we've been able to take those two things and really lean into those, you know, posting old games on MSG networks, old championship runs, working with our partners. Like we just worked with Bud Light to use an initiative of theirs to kind of stay in, watch, you know, a former Knicks championship game and support your local business by ordering dinner in. So we've been able to get creative and do things like that. And also we own 2 esports teams, which have really helped in our portfolio and those are really the active properties that we're leaning into. So all is good and we've been able to adjust. But with that being said, there's just no feeling like, you know, being with your clients and taking them to, you know, a packed arena where Billy Joel is, you know, crushing it and things like that. So I long for the days to get back to when the arena is sold out, but for now, just lucky that we've been able to be creative and adjust to the current times.
Great, thank you guys. We're approaching our last question, so I just wanted to remind viewers, if you guys have any questions, please submit them through, I believe, the YouTube link. And that would be great, so we could get some more questions in there. But now just moving on. How do you guys think that your experience at work differed from your experiences and your expectations as a student? I know going to Hofstra is obviously a great experience. It's a great college. And everybody has this idea of what they think that their job and their ideal job is going to be. So how do you guys think that your expectations differed from the reality you're living in now?
Yeah, I could take that. Like I think I alluded to earlier, I think going from, you know, you take these stepping stones from high school, you go to college and you mature a bit, and then from college you go to the working world. And each stage in your life, you're maturing and taking these lessons and helping them shape your values and your work ethic and things like that. And I think when you go from college to the working world, you're taking the training wheels off, right? Like, you know that you could ride the bike, but now it's like, okay, you got to do it on your own. So I think that's the biggest difference. Like, in college, you feel steady, you feel like, you know, you can network and have a good conversation, and, you know, you've got your exams handled and things like that, and good relationships with your professors and your friends. But then when you get into the real world, it's like, okay, like, you got to do it on your own. There's no one kind of holding your hand. There's nothing to fall back on in a way. So I think that's the biggest difference, just taking responsibility for yourself, owning your actions, and, you know, just being motivated and being a self-starter to further your career and not depending on other people to kind of always help you along. I mean, people will be out there and help you along, but a lot of it has to come from you. Like Colleen said before, you know, we're here to help, but you kind of have to ask us the question and form the relationship. So I think that's what it is. It's not, you know, it's just being self-motivated and self-starting and kind of, you know, spreading your wings and going.
I think to that point too, I completely agree. And I think while Hofstra gives an amazing foundation, and as we touched on before, you accumulate amazing skills. One thing that I wish that I had known when I first started was that it's okay to not know everything. Because when I was the student, I was one of the top of my class. I thought I knew everything, and I think I was a little bit too hard on myself when I first started, that I didn't know everything right away, and it took me a little bit of time to adjust, and there is a learning curve, and then that's okay. And as soon as you realize that and go in hungry to learn and stay motivated that way, that's going to be more impressive to your bosses, and that's going to help you get ahead if you have that mentality instead of kind of getting in your own way.
So to jump off that point from Colleen, it's kind of like you have to walk before you run. I was definitely ready to run. I was ready to sprint. I was like, well, let's do this. Let's push. And one thing that I realized is there are going to be some mundane parts of your role that aren't super exciting. And you're like, I want to do the fun part now. I want to do the hard part now. And you really have to build that foundation and be disciplined around that. So, you know, when a client calls and asks you for something small, like, you should treat that as it's the biggest thing ever, because that's how you learn and that's how you grow. And you learn those easy things in the beginning, and then they become even easier, and you get to get more responsibility, and your manager sees you building those building blocks. But sometimes you can't really see the forest for the trees. You get lost in these one items. So this is maybe a boring task. I don't know why I'm doing it. And if you do it and do it well, efficiently, and you ask the right questions, like Colleen said, you'll actually show that you're ready for the next step. And that is true throughout your whole career. And that's kind of the basis of how you grow. But it's very difficult in the beginning to really see the whys around what you're doing, and just keep pushing. That's what you have to just keep pushing, keep working, and keep showing your best self and how hard you can work while asking questions and kind of pausing to do the right thing. So that's what I learned a little bit, I think, the hard way in the beginning, but it ended up being the most fruitful lesson I took out of my first 6 months of working.
All right, great. Thank you guys so much. We actually did get a few questions from viewers, so we're just going to start with the little Q&A now. First question from somebody: have you guys ever encountered burnout? Whichever one of you guys wants to start.
So I can take that one. So I started grad school the semester after I graduated, and I've been in grad school since I've been working full time. So I definitely think that there have been a few times where I have burned out for sure. And that's why I just want to echo again the importance of setting those goals to be goofy and to do what you want, because that's going to be the only way to get your mind reset, is just by taking that time to figure out why do you feel the way that you do, and what's something that you can do that'll help get you back on track, and not being afraid or embarrassed to ask for help, or even just not being afraid to say, I'm going to be selfish with my time right now, get myself back on track. And once you do that, you will be way more productive, way more motivated, and ultimately more successful.
So personally, I've definitely experienced that. I would say I had my most palpable experience in a burnout in like 2 years ago, right when I started this role of being an analyst, and I was having a hard time balancing things. And this goes all the way back to my favorite point of the routine. You know, once you hit that point where you're like, wow, I can't give anymore. I'm giving all that I have. I'm not moving the needle. What's going wrong? And it took a lot of self-reflection. I actually meditated. I started building a workout routine through Pilates. And I started to realize I needed to find a space where I could feel like I could express myself, whether that be an hour or 2 hours on a Saturday of just me time. And then I could reflect back into work and say, okay, instead of just plowing through this work, how can I stay organized and do this the most efficiently? My time is important. And once I said that to myself, my whole world kind of changed. And I was able not only pull myself out of burnout, but transcend in my role. And it was a huge realization to me. And I think if you hit that point, whether it be in college, which it is for a lot of people, or your first year of working or your 5th year of working, whenever, you need to look and say, I'm important, my time's important, and how can I better serve myself as an individual so that I can help everybody else around me? It's kind of like put the mask on first before you put it on somebody else. Lots of phrases I like to use, but I think it drives the point home. You really have to take care of yourself in order to succeed in that way.
Yeah, both great points that I'll just follow up on a bit. The way I look at it, I have definitely burnt out. I was actually reflecting with a coworker the other night that the biggest presentation of my young career was basically like a year ago, and I 1000%, was burning out after that. And I was honest with my manager, and I sat in the room and I was just like, I'm feeling burnt out right now. And then, if you have a great relationship with your manager and they care about your mental health, which they will, and you care about your mental health, take a few days, reflect, take a vacation day, go on a run, sleep in until noon if you need to, and things like that. There's no shame in admitting that you're really overwhelmed right now and you need some time. And you're going to face it in your career multiple times. So I think the first, thing is don't be afraid to admit it. Obviously have a good routine in place so it doesn't happen very often, but you're going to face it. So be okay with talking about it and be okay with taking the time that you need for it. I also think there's a difference between burning out and being burnt out. There's going to be times where you're overwhelmed and you're sort of burning out, but if you're completely burnt out, I think you need to also just take a look at your position and your company and your life and more things in general. Like, have you maximized your potential in the current position you're in? Is it more, maybe your values and goals don't match up with your company and things like that? So, you're going to have times when you burn out because you're overwhelmed or you're exhausted. But if your heart is completely not into it and you just feel like you're not moving the needle, as Allison said, then you also have to take a bigger reflection and look on just your overall life and kind of the direction that you need it to go in, and whether that's at your current job or if you need to move, because you need a new plan every few years to kind of make sure you're achieving those professional and personal goals as well.
Definitely great advice. Thank you guys. We have another question as well from a viewer. Do you guys have any advice for finding an internship for the fall?
So I think this is a multi-layered question because it depends right now what companies are doing, whether they're doing virtual internships or holding their internships at all. I think the fall is probably a better place to start, considering I think that is forward looking to where things might revert back to a more normal pace. I would say just because they don't have an internship posting doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out. I think a lot of companies are in an uncertain position, but if they know that you're interested and they have the opportunity to have an internship rec in fall or late summer, and they know that you're ready to go, I think positioning yourself with a couple of companies by just reaching out, maybe even cold on LinkedIn, just put yourself out there and say, I am willing to work. I want to be an intern in your company specifically because X, Y, and Z. I think I'd be, a valuable player because X, Y, and Z. And then from there, they'll just go, okay, I have an internship now in the fall. I'm going to put, Jane in there and she's going to do it for us because she's already ready to go and we don't need to interview anyone. You can really change your destiny just by reaching out and setting yourself up. That's just one of my advice right now in the current environment with internships.
I think to that point too, one thing that I know that I would do is if you don't have an internship this summer, you still have time this summer that you can work on yourself. So whether that's Googling different certification programs or just staying up to date on your skills, so that way you can come into interviews in the fall and say, hey, I know I didn't have an internship this summer, but look at everything that I did. And I didn't just take it as free time to go to the beach, hopefully if we can, but you used your time wisely. And I think that'll be very impressive also, coming out and saying, I want to better myself, and if it can't be in an internship, then I'm going to use my time more wisely than maybe some other students, and learn something that you might not have otherwise.
100%. I think Colleen kind of stole my point a little. What I was going to say is you have to use your time creatively, right? So if that's getting a certification, if that's starting a blog on the industry you want to go into, anything to show that like I'm trying my hardest to stay active in the current situation is a big thing for employers, because they're going to understand. They're going to be like, yeah, like, of course this person didn't have a summer internship because there weren't really that many around, right? But they, took the time to stay up on the industry, to stay up on my company. They took the time to get a certification that maybe wasn't even, maybe they didn't even need for the internship, but they knew could be valuable going ahead in their career. So just showing you're staying active is important. And then also following up on Allison's point of just reaching out. It's easier to ask someone for help or to ask someone to go to bat for you when you already have an existing relationship with them, right? So reach out and say, hey, so and so, so you worked at this company. Here's an article I just read about your company. Found it so interesting that you were doing X, Y, and Z. Would love to hop on the phone and learn more about your day to day. And then, 4 weeks from now, hey, just saw this video, thought it would be interesting for you guys to consider, as you come back online. And then as you go on, maybe September, something pops into their head, and either you reach out to them and say, I saw this posting, or they'll reach out to you and say, hey, I thought you'd be really good for this job because of that pre-existing relationship you had. So like Allison and Colleen said, building relationships and also just bettering yourself, I think is really the way to set yourself up for success once everything starts to get back to normal.
Yeah, that was definitely a great question and great advice. We still have a little bit of time, and we're getting a couple more questions from viewers. The next one would be from Sarah Ann. What is your advice for seniors graduating during this pandemic, and will their transition be so much harder since they didn't get to finish off their semester physically at Hofstra?
I can start. I think the first thing is that you have to be proud. You're not graduating in the typical circumstances. You're not going to walk right away and things like that. But like, take time, celebrate at home, be like, I achieved this, I did it. No matter what, I'm getting my diploma and I worked really hard for the past 4 years and things like that. So be proud of what you did and celebrate it. And, if you want to take a rolled up paper towel and act like you're walking across the stage in May, then do that. Do something fun. Like Colleen said, set silly goals and do silly things. And that's going to keep you, that's going to keep you positive during this time. I mean, listen, getting a job as a senior or even getting an internship when you're younger, it's always hard. The odds are always stacked against you and things like that. Will I say it's going to be harder? I think that's hard for any of us to predict right now. Yeah, it's going to be harder, but it might be even easier when everything comes back, because, companies may be more active and need to hire more people. So that's a hard question to answer. But I think, like we said, building relationships and making yourself more valuable is really the key right now. And then worrying about what you can control. Like, you can't control whether companies are going to be hiring more or less in the future. Just control what you can. So I think it's less about being harder or easier and more just preparing yourself for whatever it is.
So, to Nicole's point about celebrating being a graduate, I have already ordered from Party City decorations for my house. On May 17th, I am having a graduation party with just my family, who I live with. But it's so important to celebrate all that we've done and all that we've accomplished. And I'm going to take my PTO day the day after my graduation, because those are the things that you need to get yourself mentally straight and will help you want to be proactive. And I think, as Nicole said, also, we don't know the future, but I think that if you keep keep looking and keep being positive and do as we said and try and get certifications, I think that'll set you apart when you have those interviews and when you're connecting with people, just to prove that, yeah, everyone knows that no one was able to go to school, so I don't think that'll be held against you. But what could set you apart is how much you were willing to do that you necessarily didn't have to, but just staying positive and things will clear up and you will get something, and just try and stay as positive as you can.
I think Colleen and Nicole make an amazing point that I didn't even think to say, but it's so true. Like, if I'm reflecting on what it was like to graduate, you should be so proud of yourselves. Like, it's amazing feat, 4 years of diligent work and you got through it. That's amazing. So like, full stop, that should be celebrated. And I really do agree with that point. I think when you reflect on the job market, like Nicole, I think said, looking for a job is never easy. Yes, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult right now, but this is kind of one of those moments where you show yourself what you've got, how resilient you are, what you're capable of. I mean, put the pedal to the metal, start applying. Don't be bashful. Reach out to people. Make that spreadsheet. Pick all the companies you like. Find out everything you can about them. Just obsess over this like you would your favorite class. Obsess over this like you would your favorite sports team. Like, this is your life and it is worth the time you're going to put in. This is the work that really changes things for you. So I think you graduate on May 17th, take some time, reflect, be really proud, and then get out there and do it, whether that's virtually or not. And don't be bashful about it. Don't be apologetic by how proud you are of your accomplishments. Go out there and say to those employers, I know you're not hiring right now. When you are, remember my name. That's it. And keep pushing. So I think all the points brought up to here today, just for this environment, like, just don't give up. That's the theme.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you, guys. I think this might be one of the last questions from Daniela. What do you think helped set you apart from others who wanted the same job as you? Allison, do you want to start?
Sure. So that is really difficult because there are so many people in the same position as you when you graduate. You know, you may have a couple of internships or not. You may have a similar background as those individuals. What really sets you apart is a couple of things. How prepared you are when you speak to people, your personality. Don't become a robot because you think that's what they want. They want you as a person, and they want to see that you're positive and ready to work. And then showing your hard work. I mean, Colleen and Nicole were saying, get that certification in your free time. Set your personal goals. Just show them that you're a person who's not afraid to do work and do it in the face of a difficult time or an uphill battle. Like, you are not afraid of those things. So just showing them who you are and what you got, and in a verbal setting, it takes some practice. I mean, that's why those interviews at the Career Center were really helpful. It does take practice, and practice in a mirror and practice with your family, but just get your elevator speech down and really show them like who you are and what you're able to do. And that's what differentiates, because not a lot of people take the time to do that. They think it's silly. They're like, well, I could just, knock this out of the park. I have all this experience, but conveying the experience to somebody and a succinct 1-minute sentence, that's hard. So really get on the same page with what you've done, know it cold, and be ready to, I guess, sell yourself at the end of the day, because that's really what's going to differentiate you.
And I think once you put in that effort to be prepared, you just sound more excited. You sound more passionate. And I think that's been a huge takeaways that I've gotten from bosses after I've been interviewed, was like, you seemed so passionate. And it's because I took the time to learn about it. I took the time to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? What does this position need? What are the skills that I need to know? And dropping those in your interview too. Make sure you have the application near you so you can use the words that they use, and you just sound more prepared, but you also sound excited, because it's a lot harder to pick someone when they don't really seem like they want it. But if you sound good and you look good, you'll have some luck.
Totally agree. It's kind of funny. It's like, how do I differentiate myself before I even get the job, right? You're like, I know I could differentiate myself through the hard work or my skills, but like Allison and Colleen said, it's presenting yourself in a way that they believe you and they're confident, like, okay, like she really will do a good job. And I think it's breaking it down to a few things. One, obviously your resume is important, right? But it's not the end all be all. Using for your resume, using the words that are in the job application onto your resume, people find it easier to read things they're familiar with. So if you're using the words from the actual job application, obviously not verbatim, but if you're sprinkling in a few words here and there, it's like, okay, she's speaking my language, she understands it, things like that. The second thing is, when you're going in for an interview, be prepared not only on the company who you're interviewing with, your resume and things like that, but little things. Have extra sheets of your resume. Have a business card if you have one. Dress formally no matter what the company culture is that you're going into. If it's a startup and they're casual and your interviewer walks in shorts, still be in a suit or a skirt or things like that. Shake their hand, look them in the eye. These are like the little things that people remember, like, wow, she had a really good handshake and she was really confident and things like that. And then the third thing is, there are little things like writing a thank you note after your interview and things like that. People remember you more because you didn't write the thank you note than they do for writing it. So like, if you write it, it's great. They'll read it. Maybe they'll respond, they won't, but it checks the box like, okay, she did what she had to do. If you don't write it, you stand out in such a bad way. And, don't be afraid to follow up and be like, hey, so and so, I know we talked about, this event in my interview, and say, I just saw this cool video and thought you would enjoy it, a week or two after your interview if you're not hearing and things like that. So there are little things that maybe you think aren't as important, like prepping and, talking to yourself in the mirror and things like that, that those little things really make such a difference because it shows that you're willing to put the effort in before you get the job.
All right, we have time for one more. We have about 7 minutes left. This one's a little bit switching gears. Someone wants to know about high school students. So we do have a couple of high school students viewing this event today. So how can a student in high school put themselves out there and get a head start on their future in college and maybe their future career goals?
I could start if you guys want to. I think in high school, obviously it's challenging, right? Like you don't have a lot of experience. You're still learning as a student. You're still learning who you are and things like that. But you could start at like a community level, whether that's volunteering somewhere, whether that's getting involved in a school newspaper or school events, any like small things to start building your resume or your experience is extremely helpful. And that's building it so when you're applying to colleges, your resume and your experience looks fuller. And also, for your first few jobs, you may have some high school awards or experiences on there. I know I interviewed someone once who published a book while they were in high school, and that's very impressive just to show at a young age that they were willing to get after it. So any way you can volunteer. I know when I was in high school, I volunteered for Habitat for Humanity, and yeah, it looked great on my resume, but it was also like one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, giving back to my local community and helping someone on Long Island and things like that. So any local ways that you can get involved with your school, your family, friends, and just doing odds and ends things that build your experience. I think that's really the best way to set yourself up, and obviously work hard in school and get good grades.
So it's super funny, and I'm gonna, say Nicole's point too. My youngest brother is a senior in high school, and he's going to Hofstra. So go Hofstra. This is very applicable to him. I sent him the link, so I hope he's signed in. But when I was in high school, I totally volunteered, did as much as possible. I was way overachiever. Maybe sometimes I did too much, but I think this is the time in your life where you can do whatever you want. reflecting back, this is the best thing you've ever been given. You can make decisions and do whatever you want, and be interested in whatever you want. It's really a time of freedom. Don't feel nervous about it. One thing that my brother did is he wants to go into sports management, so he started writing articles for his school newspaper in his senior year, which is a little bit like, oh, you joined in your senior year, but he literally went out and did it. And so you just have to find what you like or love or interested in, just start acting and reaching out, and just start getting your feet wet, because you have some time. All you need to know is where you want to go to college. You don't have to know what you want to do forever, and just start trying things, because this is the best time in your life to do it.
So just to that point also, I think something that I did when I was in high school, in addition to getting jobs and volunteering for things, is I took the time to begin researching different industries. And when I first started Hofstra, I wanted to be in accounting, and I switched over when I was a junior in marketing. So just whatever you whatever you research in high school, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be what you stick with, but just kind of getting a sense of where you might want to go and where you might want to start, that'll likely impact also maybe where you'll want to go to school. And if you have the time to look into different industries and different careers, that kind of eases the anxiety a little bit too, because you feel like you're a little bit more prepared, and you have a sense of a direction, and you can have thought out conversations with adults when you ask for advice if you need it. And I think that is also pretty helpful too, is just try and see if you can hone in on some hobbies that you like, and see if you can build a career around that, and that might guide you later on.
Great. Thank you guys all so much. We're just about running out of time now, but I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here, taking time out of your day to speak to everyone. Also, thank you guys, everybody who was watching the live broadcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was really informative with a lot of good advice. Just wanted to mention that anybody who may have missed the broadcast, the link will be available for people to view later on. And if you do have any further questions for the panelists, please reach out to one of us or one of the deans or anything, and I'm sure they can hopefully connect you and get your questions answered. But yeah, thank you guys again so much. This was great. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you all.